we got another news video to get to, and that is where we focus on WWE's Raw 30 from last night, with Raw 30 being the largest domestic gate in Raw history, according to Fightful Select, which is, I'm not gonna say it's crazy, but it's good to see that a special edition of Monday Night Raw lived up to expectations, both gate-wise and within the ranks of fan appeal, if that makes sense, because that means people were as excited as they should have been for Raw 30, and they turned out in droves for what will be now the largest domestic gate in Raw history. Also, we had a little bit of an issue, or there may have been a little bit of an issue on last night's Raw, with the question being, or the question having to do with, why Becky Lynch versus Bayley did not take place on the event. As we spoke about in a news video last week, the event was supposed to feature a steel cage match between Bayley and Becky Lynch, but instead just featured Bayley versus Becky Lynch in a Bayley getting jumped by Becky Lynch. And even WWE themselves, I just want to point out, even WWE themselves touted the success of Monday Night Raw last night, but the point I was making with Bayley versus Becky Lynch, the reason, according to reports, that the match was postponed, or I would say postponed, is due to the fact that the Bloodline segment that opened Raw ran a little bit long, and that caused WWE to basically have to make changes to the event, and caused some segments to have to be shortened and or changed, and one of those segments that had to be changed was Bayley versus Becky Lynch. Now the question is, from a standpoint of the women's division, is it fair that the major segment for the women's division was postponed or canceled or whatever the case? I mean, the reality of the situation is this: they could postpone it, give it another week or two, and build it up again, putting it at maybe Elimination Chamber, maybe at WrestleMania itself, whatever the case is, or save it for the build up to WrestleMania itself. But the idea that I honestly don't know if this is the case, because I didn't watch everything having to do with the episode. I watched some things having to do with the episode. But I do believe, from what I've heard, that the women's division should have been, or could have been, a little bit more represented on the event than they were. So my question is, you couldn't have maybe Medusa do something with Bianca Belair, maybe Medusa do something with Alexa Bliss, or maybe Medusa do something and then have that set up and then have it, have the attack happen earlier and then have that cancel the steel cage match, or postpone the steel cage match, like have Adam Pearce come out and be like, no, the steel cage match may not happen tonight, but it will happen. or Medusa do it just to give Medusa some TV time outside of being a background character in the APA poker game. I mean, that's just my perspective on it. I think there could have been a way to do it, but instead of going a particular way, they just chose to go the route of, we're just going to keep the segment the way it is and, give, basically just cut it down. Because as I believe Fightful Select went on to say, that it was either WWE either said either that the segment was going to either be a short cage match, or it was going to be the angle that we got. I think they could have did the angle that we got and then gave us either a WWE.com exclusive or a YouTube exclusive or something to that effect. But the fact of the matter is, they could have did more. They just chose not to. Simple as that. I'm not saying on TV. I'm saying in general, they could have did more, but they chose not to. Because for whatever reason, these major wrestling companies have a problem with using social media to further things on television sometimes. And they don't necessarily think about furthering things on TV with social media. Or, small details. As they say, semantics. As you would. Semantics as you would. And, I mean, I know from the standpoint of a fan, of course I'm going to be thinking about semantics, because what else do fans think about? But, the fact of the matter is, all I'm thinking about is that to quell the backlash or to figure something out, why not even just put it on SmackDown? Like, have the legends represented on SmackDown, because the fact of the matter is, the women's division should have something, because it is the build up to the Royal Rumble. It's also the build up to the Royal Rumble, so you can say that, it was, Raw 30, you got a lot of people, blah, 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 blah. But it's also the build up to the Royal Rumble, so they need something. But in good news, there was also good news coming out of Raw 30, and the good news coming out of Raw 30 was that according to PW Insider, Vince McMahon was not backstage at the event. According to PW Insider, Vince McMahon was not backstage at the event. And in my opinion, that is good news. That is very good news. Because I don't think anybody wants Vince McMahon backstage at any WWE event. In the upcoming or in the future. Again, that might just be me, but the fact of the matter is, I think the less we hear about Vince McMahon, the happier that wrestling fans will be. That might just be me, but I think that the less we hear about Vince, the happier people will be. According to an update from Kylie Ray herself, I gave you guys an update, I believe, yesterday on contracts, on the contract status of various talent, including Kylie Ray, who recently worked a tryout for WWE late last year on Main Event, I believe in a match against Dana Brooke. Kylie Ray herself took to social media to give us an update, and the update was that WWE basically just told her, not right now. That they would still bring her in for extra work, here, there, and sometimes, but that it is not right now. That they had a conversation about her mental health and where she was at with that, and just it was a pleasant experience, because according to Kylie Ray, they contacted her school, or contacted the school to see if there was any extras. that could come in for television, and she said that basically she threw her name in the hat to come in for television as an extra, and Gabe Sapolsky basically was surprised that she wanted to come in and do extra work. And that led to basically the circumstances of her match with Dana Brooke. But basically she said that it wasn't a no, it was just a not right now. You know, which is very different. You know, it is very different. A no is different than a not right now. Which it is good that WWE is still looking to sign people, but not in a rush to sign people, if that makes sense. If that makes sense. I do like the fact that WWE is still looking to sign people, but aren't in a rush to sign people. Because they lost a lot of depth within the ranks of the women's division over the budget cuts throughout 2022 and 2021 and 2022. So the idea that they are looking to bring some talent back, it is a good sight. Or bring some depth back, I should say. And that's not to undercut. It's not to undercut certain women, or to undercut the idea that, you know, these women are supposed, you know, that some of them are helpful or whatever the case is. It is more to sit there and say that the more they have in the division, the healthier the division is. If that makes sense. And, well, basically, you just put two and two together. One last thing before we go, it is that the authors of Pain, who worked for WWE from about 2016 until 2020. Speaking of people that were released via the budget cuts, they are rumored to be possibly returning very soon to WWE. Which, if there's any part of WWE next to the women's division that needs a little bit of help, it is the tag team division. But AOP would not be returning alone. There is rumors that if AOP returns, they will be returning with their former manager, Paul Ellering, who added so much to their characters on NXT that it was a very much disappointment when they were called up and were called up without Paul Ellering. So, to see Paul return with them would be a nice sight, and something that I'm sure we will see probably closer to after WrestleMania rather than before. But with that being said, I wish nothing but the best to Kylie Ray, and I do hope that she makes her debut in WWE, because she would be a nice addition to the women's division, and AOP would be a nice addition to the tag team division. But with that being said, we have more to get to in another news video, so stay tuned for that. I will see you again soon.